Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball. With the MLB trade deadline approaching and the LA Angels not knowing if they're going to make the playoffs or not, there's some serious talks about an Ohtani trade happening. And this would be a historical type of package going back to LA because of what Ohtani can provide both as a hitter and as a pitcher. Today we'll be answering the question of, is Shohei Ohtani going to get traded and where will he most likely end up? If you're a San Francisco Giants fan, I made an entire video about Shohei possibly getting traded to the Giants, so go check that one out as they're not going to be featured in today's video. If you didn't know, Ohtani's on the last year of his contract and he's going to be a fully unrestricted free agent at season's end. So if the Angels want to keep him, it's because they're making a push for the playoffs. And the Angels haven't made the playoffs since 2014, and the last time they won a game in the playoffs was 2009. Right now, the Angels are 3.5 games back of the Blue Jays for the final wildcard spot, but they also have to catch up ground over the Yankees and the Red Sox. Their month of August is going to be very tough as every series but one is against teams who are over 500, and Mike Trout won't even return until mid-August. Overall, they have the 7th hardest schedule remaining in the entire MLB. So all of the chances of the Angels making the playoffs are pretty grim. I think Angels management will most likely hold on to Ohtani. There's probably a 25 to 30% chance he actually gets traded. But in that chance, what would it take for a team to trade for Ohtani? I think any team that wants to make a good competitive offer will have to offer multiple top 100 prospects. And if they don't have that, 3 to 4 guys with high upside with one really good top 100 prospect. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the 8 teams that have the best chances for trading for Ohtani and what type of prospects they'd most likely give up in a deal. Before we go into teams and prospects that the Angels should trade with in an ideal Shohei Ohtani trade, I do want to mention that they're most likely going to look out for some starting or relief pitching depth, as pitching has been very hard to come by for the Angels over the past 10 to 15 years, and it's always been their constant flaw. Starting off with the most fun and interesting team in the MLB, the Baltimore Orioles. Not only do the Orioles have the prospect capital to get this type of trade done, they're also currently leading the AL East, having jumped the Tampa Bay Rays this past weekend. Although getting a guy like Shohei Ohtani would be really good for the Orioles, I still think they wouldn't offer their number one prospect, Jackson Holliday, just because of how good he could become for the Orioles and the fact that Shohei might just be a half-year rental. Luckily, the Orioles have plenty of other top 100 prospects they can afford to give up. Some guys that may be a possibility include Colton Cowser, Jordan Westburg, Heston Kjerstad, Samuel Balasso, and because all those guys are hitters, one pitcher which the Angels probably more desperately need is their number 9 prospect, DL Hall. Moving on to the team they just overtook for the first spot in the AL East, the Tampa Bay Rays. I think if the Rays do make a trade for Ohtani, it would be really interesting and different in baseball history because the Rays have all the prospects and they're a very good team. So they could just be like, all right, screw it. Let's give up all these prospects and hope Ohtani stays and we can win a World Series. I think a deal should be headlined by either one of their top 3 infield prospects, Junior Caminero, Curtis Mead, or Carson Williams. I think an ideal trade alongside one of those 3 guys would be like Mason Montgomery, Xavier Isaac, and Marcus Johnson. I think you could attach Kyle Manzaro and give them less overall prospects, but better quality for the average prospect. Also, I think the Rays, like the Orioles, wouldn't be inclined to give up as many good prospects because of the fact that Ohtani might not stay with either of those franchises because they're not big markets, and all the while they're both very competitive teams now. Both of those teams have been reluctant to spend and throw big money at free agents in past off seasons just based off how their front office works. So I doubt whether Ohtani gets traded to either Baltimore or Tampa Bay that he's going to stay there past this half year. Next, moving on to the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are the crosstown rivals of the Angels, and they have one of the best run minor league systems in the entire MLB, which causes them to churn out constant great players and always stay in contention for the past 15 seasons. I think an ideal trade between the two teams would look like Michael Busch, Gavin Stone, Ryan Pepiot, and Bobby Miller. Although I think that looks like a pretty good deal, the Angels are going to be hesitant to trade with the Dodgers. They're the crosstown rivals, and I don't think fans would like to see Shohei go to the Dodgers. Rather, they'd like to see him get traded to a different AL or NL team if a trade even happens. If the Dodgers want to get Shohei, I think rather than trading for him, they should actually sign him in free agency. We've seen the Dodgers throw some big money in the past, like just Freddie Freeman very recently. I wouldn't be surprised if they offer Shohei a contract in the range of $500 to $600 million, which I know sounds crazy, but next winter, I think that's a realistic possibility. Moving on to a young and fun team in the NL West, the Arizona Diamondbacks. The D-backs showed through the first half of the season that they can hang with the big boys and the Dodgers and Giants. They even held the NL West lead for a good amount of time. Although they have underperformed and come back to earth recently, the D-backs are still a very young team with the potential of trading for Shohei. I think this deal would be centered around top prospect Jordan Lawler, who's a top 5 prospect in all of baseball. If you package Lawler with pitcher Yumin Lin and another prospect in Blake Walston, I think that's a pretty fair deal. Although Lawler is a top 5 prospect in baseball, his value and his potential aren't as high as his prospect status, which is why he's being thrown in a trade for Shohei. And if they don't want to give up Lawler, they could give up more pieces and more big league guys like Alek Thomas, who hasn't hit too well so far in the big leagues, but he has gold glove defense in center field. Next, moving to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are a great team that would like to trade for Shohei, but I'm not sure if their prospects are necessarily enough. They only have one top 100 prospect, which is Ricky Tiedemann, who's obviously going to be involved in this deal. If you add in Orelvis Martinez, a slugger who's been raking his way up through the minors and now is at AAA, and then 2 pitchers in Sam Roberts, the team's number 7 prospect, and Yosfer Zuraleta, a guy who's pretty old but has some nasty stuff and the ability to dominate at the major league level if he gets his control better. I think that package of 4 players could be enough. However, depending on other teams' offers and if they offer better prospects, like 2 or 3 top 100 guys, I think the Angels will have to accept, which is where the Orioles and Rays have a bigger advantage compared to a team like the Blue Jays. Moving on to the New York Yankees, the Blue Jays' biggest rival in the AL East. The Yankees are having a fairly disappointing season, but much of that is due to the injury of Aaron Judge, and the team is now 2.5 games back of a wildcard spot. I think a Shohei trade has to involve Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones, both outfielders of the Yankees prospect system, but also for a trade to fully go through, it's going to have to involve the Yankees' left side of the infield. They're going to have to give up either one of Volpe or Peraza for it to go through because the Angels would want that type of young, major league ready infield talent. I'm not sure if the Yankees would be willing to sacrifice that in a trade for Shohei Ohtani, which could only be a half-year rental. And that's what's going to decide if the Yankees actively pursue Shohei or not over the next week. And the last team in today's video, the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners have some of the best young pitching depth and prospects in all of baseball. As I've talked about the Angels' inability to develop starting pitching, they're going to want some great pitchers. They're going to want either one of Logan Gilbert or George Kirby, who are both established big league arms who have done great in their short careers thus far, but also they have some pitching prospects like Brian Wu, who's getting a taste as a starter in the big leagues, so they'll definitely try to get either one of those 2 guys, and it probably more prospects like Brian Wu. If the Mariners don't want to go the route of giving up either one of Gilbert or Kirby, they could offload a bunch of good prospects. Emerson Hancock, another pitcher, is the Mariners' number 5 prospect. They also have some infield and outfield prospects like Tyler Locklear, Cade Marlowe, and a left-hand pitching prospect in Juan Pinto. Although Shohei has expressed his interest in Seattle in the past, and you have a great mentor in Ichiro Suzuki who can help him adjust there, although I don't think he'll need too much adjusting, I'm not sure if the Mariners will be the team to pull this plug at this point. They're hovering around 500, their team is not doing great offensively, and I'm not sure if a Shohei trade can really boost them too much. They're pretty far off from the playoffs as of right now, and they're most likely going to end the year something between 80 to 85 wins, with or without Shohei, and so I think the best move for the Mariners is rather convince Shohei to sign in free agency, similar to the Dodgers. Thank you guys for watching this video and me breaking down some hypothetical Shohei Ohtani trades with some prospects I'd like to see come back in return. Hope you guys enjoyed, and bye.